All right, so we're going to change gears a little bit here and talk a little bit about medical devices. I'm Stu Mitchell. I am the founder and CEO of Novuson. We like to say we're clearing the way for safer surgeries by eliminating the burning and charring of patient's tissue and literally clearing the smoke screen. Have you ever wondered what happens during a surgical procedure? Did you know that depending on the procedure, your tissue can be excessively burnt and smoke can be emitted into the surgical field? Before I get into that, I'll tell you a little bit about our team. There's been some discussion earlier today about your management team and stuff. Well, my team consists of experienced entrepreneurs in technology, business, finance, product commercialization, and medical advisors. Gene and myself launched our first business. After a 10-year period, we grew it from a $100,000 investment to generating over $1 million a month in revenue, and then we exited it by strategic acquisition. Myself, I have a PhD in bioengineering. I've worked for over 30 years developing technologies in conjunction with businesses, government agencies, to develop technologies to better treat diseases. One of the things that was kind of interesting, we're always working with surgeons, we're doing animal studies. People from offices near us would often come and complain about the smell and the smoke that's generated by the surgical devices that we were using at the university. And the surgeons that I was working with, they would look at us, look at the people that came in, and they would just say, yeah, well, that's something we deal with on a daily basis. At that time, we realized that we could develop a technology that would improve the outcomes in surgical procedures, not only for the patients, but for the surgeons. So electrosurgical devices are very common in the surgical suite. This is an example of a device. This is actually our predicate device for our regulatory filing. It's a razor blade business model. The handset that you see on top here, this is a disposable component. It's a single patient use device. The generator is what we would consider the razor. These go in the surgical suite, which they are placed, and that's where they stay. It's an $8.9 billion global total addressable market. It consists of 4 verticals: minimally invasive, general, robotic, and endoscopic surgery. We're going to initially focus on the US market, which is a $164 million segment for Novuson, or $2.6 billion segment for Novuson. And here's the issue that we're working with. So when a surgeon performs a laparoscopic procedure with current technologies, an image up here on the left, the surgical field is filled with smoke. The smoke is generated because the current devices burn and jar the tissue. This obscures the surgeon's field of vision. So if we put this in perspective, over 1/3 of all surgeries have complications. 50% of them are considered avoidable. 3/4 are due to technical errors. Every 90 minutes, a patient is unintentionally burnt with an electrosurgical device in the OR. These result in 2 deaths every day. Complications cost the hospital system $215 billion per year in the US. So if we stop and you think about it, if the surgeon can't always see what they're doing, the likelihood of error is increased manyfold. But there's a lot more to that. Surgical smoke is equivalent to smoking 30 unfiltered cigarettes per procedure. Can you imagine the impact that has on a surgeon over the life of their career? So we looked at this at the University of Washington, and we decided we could impact all surgeries by making a technology is safer and cleaner than current technologies on the market. So how bad is it? Currently, 15 states have passed legislation requiring the mitigation of surgical smoke. There's 6 more in progress. This affects over 1 million healthcare workers per year in the US. Now, current technologies on the market, they do have a solution. It's called a smoke evacuation system. The problem with that is the doctors don't like to use them, or they're not being used to their full capability in the surgical suites. So this is Novuson's technology. And this is our technology being used in the animal model. As you can see, we completely weld the tissue together and we cut the tissue, and there is no smoke that is generated from our technologies. It doesn't burn the tissue. It doesn't char the tissue. There's no excessive damage. What differentiates Novuson's technology from other technologies is we use direct therapeutic ultrasound to weld the tissue together, and we use ultrasound to cut the tissue. Ultrasound is more efficient than radio frequency, which is in the center screen here, where they pass electricity through the tissue to cauterize it and mechanical knife to cut it, or the harmonic devices, which basically use mechanical friction to burn through the tissue. This is why we are more efficient than the technologies, is we operate at about a quarter of the temperature of their technologies. It's why we don't burn the tissue. It's why we don't char the tissue. It's why we have about a third of the amount of thermal damage that the current technologies have on the market. And we perform at the same level they do. These are the two things that the FDA are concerned about. The FDA is on the left, actually. That's the burst pressure. If you cut a vessel, that's what you have to maintain. And on the right is what the surgeons are concerned about, is how fast does it work. So we operate on par with the other devices on the market. The key things for this technology, the barriers to entry in the market, are three main ones: are regulatory, adoption, and cost. We've mitigated all of these. So for our technology, this is a direct 510K, doesn't require human studies. We've already met with the FDA. Very straightforward regulatory filing. We are a superior product with a competitive price. We have clinical validation, preclinical validation, I should say. We're more precise and safer. And for the cost and time, we are what's considered a last mover with a better technology. It's a mature market, so we don't have to develop or convince the market that energy can be used in surgical procedures, but it is used all the time. Our medical advisory board consists of surgeons and robotic and other surgical specialties that require a smaller, safer device. At Novuson, we have two revenue streams. First is through strategic collaborations with surgical robotic systems. We can generate or integrate our technology into surgical robotic systems. We've done this. We have one R&D collaboration. It generates revenue for us. As it matures, it'll become a licensing agreement. Currently, what we're working on at Novuson right now is the bottom side, which is our laparoscopic instruments, which we'll have built by contract manufacturers, and we'll go up with ambulatory surgical centers with direct sales to get them on the market. We have strategically aligned our sales staff with and our key opinion leaders where the states are passing legislation to mitigate surgical smoke. With this, we'll generate about $35 million in revenue by 2028. And that's selling about 240 consoles and getting 3 products on the market. Companies I have listed on the bottom here, these are companies that we have met with. So Strategics, Ethicon, Medtronic, they're interested in our technology. Hoya and Medbot have invested in our technology. This proves our value proposition because we have medical device manufacturers that are interested in using them. The most recent acquisition in this space was by Hologic. We do have a preferred equity round open. This is to bring our first-in-class 3mm mini LS to market. And we will exit by acquisition in 3 to 4 years with a 10x. So Novuson was started in 2014. So we're 10 years old. We started on SBIR grants, $3.25 million in grants, developed 4 prototypes. We've done a strategic collaboration, which we're still working on. And we've done our first production run of our devices. So we've been very capital efficient with $10 million into the company. And now we're looking to raise our next round to get our first devices through regulatory. We have 5 working prototypes. Been used in over 1,000 studies. We're ready for regulatory filing pending our validation verification studies. We have pre-commercialization revenue. 30% of our funding to date has been non-dilutive. Couple accolades. 2022, we were one of the 5 best medical device companies to watch. 2023, we were considered one of the most fundable companies by Pepperdine University. We have 16 patents. which 4 were licensed from the University of Washington. The rest of them are directly through Novuson. And that's a combination of US patents and international patents. So a quick summary, surgical smoke is a problem. Excessive damage of patient's tissue is a severe problem. Novuson's technology solves that problem. And we're in the process of getting ready to go to the market. So thank you. Any questions?
Can you go back a couple of pages? I think you had like something up there with insurance, like this is already paid for by insurance or it's paid for inside the hospital cost. How is the billing done for the product?
So the cost of these devices is covered by the codes for the procedures. So this is considered a surgical tool, similar to using a scalpel. So the codes for the procedure actually cover the cost of this device.
So it's a direct reimbursement?
It's direct reimbursement.
And your pricing versus your competitors?
We are right in the middle of the competitive pricing range. So we've looked at the full spectrum of what these devices cost, where prices are is retailing at right in the middle of it. It's about $500 per.
Does the device use like a refill sort of?
So the disposable, the handset is disposable. It's used for a single patient. So when they get through with it, that's disposed of. The generator stays in the OR and that gets reused every time.
So they pay for a new handset and how much is that every time?
It's about $500 every handset.
$500 every handset, right. And so then, so you got the insurance paying for it. You've got like a reusable license. How many, like, you know, per device that you sell annually, how many reusable components will they sell alongside that?
So the disposables, we project out to about 30,000 per year in 2028. So that's just in the US with all the surgeries. The disposables used alongside it. These devices, they can come in several different configurations. It just depends on the procedures that the surgeons are doing, which ones they'll use.
What's the cost of production?
The disposable component will cost about $100 to manufacture. The generator, which is the capital equipment, costs about $10,000. I mean, $2,000 to manufacture. It sells for about $10,000.
And do you charge like a maintenance fee for that generator?
We currently don't have that in our model, but that is something that we're considering.
Right, I mean, because you want to keep that going.
Right.
You want to talk about the sales cycle and then that would explain?
Yes, I mean, so is it your intent? I mean, I know you said the long-term exit is through an acquisition, but is it your intent to sell this yourselves or are you going into a distribution network? You know, can you explain that?
Yeah, so what we'll initially do is we'll go into ambulatory surgical centers through direct sales. So how that happens is we go out, our sales team goes with our KOLs, get them using the devices, and the initial ones will probably actually just be given to the key opinion leaders. They'll use them, they'll do publications on it, present at conferences. Then once those are established in those ambulatory surgical centers, every month they will order refills for the devices for the procedures that they find them most useful for. So that's the refill every month. Salesperson would have to go out probably 2 or 3 months in a row to make sure they do the reordering and get the more units, make sure they have enough units for what they're doing. That's the general sales cycle for these devices. Then once it gets established into the ambulatory surgical centers, then a distribution network takes over for distributing. The initial sales into the ambulatory surgical centers will be through sales. Direct sales.
Are the devices only used in like hospitals, surgical rooms, or are they used for outpatient?
No, ambulatory surgical centers can be either inpatient or outpatient. Majority of them are actually outpatient. Single.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So we're initially going into the ambulatory surgical centers because in the US, the majority of those are actually surgeon owned. So it's a little bit easier to get into than the hospital systems. Hospital systems, you pretty much need to get into a partnership with either one of the major companies, Ethicon, Medtronic, or with a insurance arm like Providence Medical.
Of the $3 million that you're using, is there like a use of proceeds on that or?
Yeah, so we'll be using that to engage a contract manufacturer and do our final production build. and then do the validation verification study. So a contract manufacturer is going to cost about $500,000 to $750,000. Validation verification study is about another $500,000, and then the remainder of it, once we get regulatory clearance, we'll be doing our initial sales launch.
So this doesn't really include the build out of that sales team.
Just for a few salespeople initially.
What do you anticipate, like the ultimate size of that sales team will need to be? I mean, are you gonna sell it to hospital systems first?
No,
No.
to ambulatory surgical centers first,
Okay,
and then go into hospital centers. So our sales force, our direct sales force is projected to be 10 people throughout the life of the company for the 5 years that we've projected out. But we're also looking at bringing in distribution centers in the US and internationally.
will international reimbursement be the same as US reimbursement?
I do not know that right now.
I assume there's just different insurance levels of
Yeah,
insurance.
it's probably just different levels of insurance, and it probably depends on the country.
Right, interesting. And did you have comparables?
Yeah, so the comps in this space are,
I thought you had a slide here
I do.
somewhere of like the competitors in the space.
there we are. So
Right,
these are over the last about 15 years or so. These are the companies that have built similar devices, and how much money they went in for investment and how much they sold at acquisition. So all these companies were acquired. On average, it's about $60 million to get a medical device to market in this class of instruments. And they exit, right around 200 million average. And the last one in the space was 160 million. It was acquired by Hologic.
what's the pre-money on this one?
Pre-money on this one's 12 million.
So if things are reasonable, post could be 20 million or something like that, so.
If we exit, when,
So on this next round, if you
Oh.
raise your 3 million and maybe a little bit of bump up.
yeah, it'll be a little bump up, then it'll be 20 million, and then we'll do one more round after this to get our full sales force out and our full product launch.
How big do you think that round would be?
It'll be 10 to 15 million.
And that'll get you a full sales force. Got it. Any other questions from the audience or thoughts? Am I forgetting anything, Erica?
I don't think so, other than we're already in a discussion with some early acquirers already, with some strategics, as well as a couple of large family offices. I'm in conversation with a large family outside of Europe that's quite interested in Washington technology.
Right, and you're in Washington State.
Yes, we're in Washington State. And the technology originated from the University of Washington, where I was a research scientist at.
Oh, yeah, fantastic, great. So you're based in, is that Seattle?
Just northeast of Seattle.
Oh, you're in the Seattle area. Okay, got it, perfect. Any other questions?
Who's your R&D collaboration with currently?
Right now, we're building all of our devices in-house, and I'm currently looking for a contract manufacturer. We've engaged one called Product Creation Studios that does early stage engineering. We have got a couple of little engineering things that we need to finish, so they're working on that for us right now. Beyond that, we'll probably work with either Biomerics or Phoenix to Ventures to do our whole manufacturing.
Fantastic, that's great. You're
Great.
gonna be at dinner tonight.
Yeah. Yes,
Right.
there'll be a dinner.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Thanks, John.